Hey guys, Artosis here, bringing you some more amazing ladder replays from the top pro gamers. This one is going to be really fun. Up here at 12 o'clock, we have Soma. Many consider him to be the strategic leader of Zerg at the moment, meaning he's kind of like innovating more than other Zergs. Really on top of his game. I know he hasn't had the greatest ASL results lately, but honestly, there's a lot of volatility in that, so you shouldn't take that to mean too much. Definitely a very strong Zerg player and has been for the last few years. His opponent down here, someone that I think everyone is dying to see more games of. This is Fantasy. Fantasy was the second best Terran in the world next to Flash at the end of the Kespa era. Okay. And there's so many interesting things about Fantasy, right? He's part of the SK Telecom Terran dynasty, right? It goes Boxer to I Love Uv to Fantasy. Them all being kind of mentors going down in that line. Fantasy was starting to make all the Star League finals there towards the end of the Kespa era, but unfortunately, his run was cut short. We actually don't know how good Fantasy was going to become, but it does seem like he was going towards like a Bonjour-esque player, right? A lot of people ask me, for instance, is Fantasy the second best Terran ever? And there's no easy answer to that, because like you look at what he did with his career and it's just much below many other Terran players. But that's because it kind of ended too quickly. So, Fantasy, he did go to StarCraft 2 for a while and was quite a strong player there. I liked StarCraft 2 a lot, and kind of quietly came back practicing on alternate IDs. And of course, he did get invited to the Gamers 8 tournament in Saudi Arabia and ended up winning that, beating extremely strong players on the way in Bisu and Jaedong in the finals. So, he's in great shape. This is a ladder game from before the Gamers 8 tournament, just to throw that out there. He was playing really regularly, and then after Gamers 8, stopped playing because he was doing other things basically for the rest of the year. I don't think he's active right at this moment as I record this replay, but it seems with what he said that he'll be coming back maybe in 2024. So yeah, anyways, let's look at this game. Let's start analyzing what he's up to. It looks like here he is just doing a walled expansion. Obviously, that's something you definitely want to do against Zerg. Anytime that you can get a wall off, you're going to be pretty happy, because then you don't have to make a bunker. Soma just going for a pretty standard 2 hatchery opener, and Fantasy scouting around. Now, what are we expecting to see from Fantasy here? Well, he gets a very fast gas, so that's pointing towards maybe a very quick +1, or even, possibly a factory. Probably not, though, because that's going to be extremely late compared to the layer timing that he's very likely to be going up against. You see that was like a 304 layer, so that generally points us towards Soma making a 3rd hatchery in his main base, maybe skipping Zergling speed and going for a sunken base defense instead, and kind of just a higher economy 2 hatchery play. So we'll see if that's the way that Soma's going to end up playing it. His Overlord, of course, kind of peeking in, checking the health of everything. He knows that this is a 15 command center. And yeah, I guess we are going to see a very fast factory. So this is really interesting. It is something to mention that Mech switches. Oh God, he throws down Academy. He throws down Academy with like 100 gas there. Okay, and he does throw down the factory as well. Where do you put the factory? There it is. Okay. Really interesting, Academy and factory at the same time. I've actually not seen this particular build order from Terran players. But anyways, the Mech switch, like from Bio into Mech, was basically invented by Fantasy. And he's like someone who's refined a lot of that. He's probably one of the best Mech players ever against Zerg. Is that what we're going to end up seeing? Hard to say. This, if I had to guess, is going to end up being a Valkyrie rush. I would be pretty surprised if it's anything else. There are other builds that you can do in there, like 1 factory Goliath with Bio, that type of thing. That's kind of like a cheesy build. We don't really see that too often right now. But yeah, we'll see here. He does have that Academy up, getting at least 1 comsat. He is going to have to add pretty soon an engineering bay as well to make sure he has those missile turrets ready for the Spire. Now, the 2 comsats are coming up, as well as the starport. And look at this. So there is the armory. And he's not getting anything other than comsats out of the Academy. This is actually pretty fascinating, because it's super rare to get your Academy and then just be like, no, I don't want stim. Instead, he's going ahead and gets a scan off there at the natural, his first scan, and I would imagine his second scan he will eventually spend in that main base to check the timings of what's going on. But yeah, makes a medic. Stim just now starting. The armory is over halfway done. More barracks coming up. So he is going to get into bio, but really kind of cut out everything to be able to get into Valkyrie as quickly as possible. Of course, what he's doing is balancing his gas very carefully so he doesn't have to get a second geyser. If you get a second geyser in a situation like this, you're just... Oh, that's a nice catch on the medic. Medics just walk off on their own all the time, guys. It's insane. But if you get your second geyser too quickly, you're not going to be able to afford getting the Valkyrie and the missile turrets and adding the barracks and all that, right? That uses up a ton of minerals to not only build it, but take 3 SCVs off of mining your minerals. So really interesting build order choice here from Fantasy. You can see that he's definitely playing it different from any other Pro Terran and getting those turrets right now. To go with the Valkyries. Only 2 barracks. That's kind of been figured out that if you're going to Valkyrie rush like this, it's very hard to fit that 3rd barracks before you get started. Oh my god, +1 Valkyrie attack. Oh, I love to see it. That's going to be very exciting. Now, Soma over here is taking his 3rd hatchery. He has a few mutas out. In fact, he has gotten up to that very important 7 count that you need to one-shot SCVs. So going to be able to get a little bit of damage done here. Don't forget, we don't have great upgrades on these Marines yet, right? They don't have like +1 on the way. They have stim, but they do not have marine range yet. So just something to note. The Valkyrie comes up and will get an attack off here. It's got to be careful not to lose it, though. Putting a lot of damage onto those mutas. He does fly the Valkyrie back and continually making Valks here. You know, I do wonder if we're going to see Fantasy, like, obviously he's on 2 barracks, but I think for sure now, because we haven't seen +1 started yet, this should turn into a mech build. I'm almost completely certain that this will be a mech switch here from Fantasy. He's just got like a middling group of Marines. He's only got the 2 barracks. Again, I don't think he made the range upgrade yet. So he just started the range upgrade right now. Of course, if you have Valkyries, you don't need it as quickly anyways. The range, you need it against like lurkers and mutas specifically. But yeah, he has those multiple Valkyries, so should be fine. Soma right now, adding quite a few Scourge. You know, he is getting that carapace upgrade, which is great against Valkyries, but when they get their own +1, then it's not going to matter nearly as much. And look at that. A great catch here from Fantasy. Soma being pushed way, way back. Fantasy with the 3 Valkyries, dealing huge amounts of damage to Soma's Mutalisks. Soma definitely has some of the best Mutalisks in the world. So, you know, him getting these Valkyries out is definitely no mistake here. Oh, man, he is going to catch them, but the Scourge come in. Maybe that was a trap to kill off the Valkyries. And in fact, he does end up killing all of them. So all 3 of those Valkyries end up going down. Really great catch there by Soma. He does lose a lot of his own Mutalisks. So maybe didn't go quite as well as he had hoped, but at least he reduces that Valkyrie count. Now, a few more of the mutas get killed off as the Marines retreating. Do see them fly a little bit too close. Soma maybe looking elsewhere during that time. Looking back at the main base here, that +1 for Valkyries still on the way, still producing Valkyries, making siege tanks, making siege mode. But realistically, do we have enough to push anything? I don't really think so, right? Like, these are Marines without any plus attack upgrades. You know, the mutas are going to have +1 armor, but obviously there's like no mutas around, so maybe that doesn't matter so much. But yeah, you don't have that very important +1 attack that we normally see on Marines by this point. Plenty of lurkers, plenty of sunkens. Only 1 sunken up this ramp. He might be able to break that if you really dived on it, but maybe doesn't realize that that's the case. Now, Ling's going for a counterattack here. If he can pick off a siege tank, that is a fantastic kill. Gets one, gonna go after a second one. This is a problem for Fantasy. You know, he has so few units. He's doing such a technical build that to lose 2 siege tanks after already losing 3 Valkyries, it really feels like Soma is dominating this game right now. Getting into that mineral line as well, getting into the mineral line up here. Will end up killing some SCVs, but it seems like this will get cleaned up without too much damage. Yeah, I mean, he lost maybe 6 SCVs, 7 SCVs total to that Zergling counterattack, but I think the bigger thing is losing those 2 siege tanks, right? Because this army is so small. It's, you know, he's been on 4 production structures for a really long time. And what's he got to show for it? It's like, okay, a very healthy Valkyrie count. He's got 3 Valkyries with +1. He's still making some siege tanks. Well, only 1 right now. He would have 3, and 3 siege tanks will one-shot a lurker, right? So that is a very important amount of siege tanks. A lot of builds in the past have been based around 3 siege tanks. Now, lurker is running around from Soma. It looks like he maybe wants to run up and like burrow in the reinforcement area because there's no science vessels. We don't have a science facility or anything like that, so he will get up here. In fact, this might even just be a counterattack as Fantasy is getting ready to do an attack of his own. So he runs up and burrows here. A bunker is on the way. Oh my God. Is going to get at least some Marines into there. And you know what? The siege tank is getting some decent hits. Oh, is he going to be able to kill that one? Okay, does kill that one. This one actually gets blocked, and he will be able to block it with that SCV. So that was really, really, really well done. And you know what? This lurker burrows just out of turret range, it looks like, since he did go ahead and do a scan there. He'll clean that up. In the meantime, the Valkyries finding all of these overlords in the top right. It looks like Soma will break through this army, so the push is going to be destroyed, but the 5+1 Valkyries absolutely murdering the supply here of Soma. Look at that. 63 of 28. This is almost feeling like Corsairs from Protoss. You know, it kind of feels like that when you see a Terran player really focusing on overlord kills. And that actually brings to mind, if you guys have been watching the channel, there's a really interesting Protoss versus Zerg that I just casted a few days ago between Flash's Protoss and Sulky's Zerg, where I talk a lot about overlord killing and Corsairs and stuff. But this is kind of looking like that from Fantasy, and you can see how quickly he's absolutely destroying all these overlords. Now, there are some counterattacks coming in, and definitely he's taking some damage over there, right? Like, he's lost so many siege tanks at this point. More factories are coming up. He does have that +1 siege tank attack vulture speed on the way as well. So he's staying alive and continues to do supply blocks. He wants to be careful here. Another pick off. The Scourge are actually doing really well at reducing. You know, he lost... So he's lost at least 6 Valkyries so far this game. Right? Can you imagine if there were 8 Valkyries here? Like, Soma wouldn't be able to make another unit for the entire game. Like, he would just... I mean, Valkyries deal so much damage. They can kill off, you know, the Overlords so quickly. And something to mention is, you know, how would you deal with, like, mass Corsairs later on, right? It's like, well, you use Scourge early, but eventually you go into, like, Hydras, right? You can't really go Hydras against someone that's going siege tanks. It just... I mean, it doesn't sound very smart. So... he is actually starting to get those Hydralisks, and in fact, Hydralisk range, so I think he's come to that conclusion that, like, well, damn, I just need to stop all this stuff from dying. But because Fantasy is going into a mech switch, I feel like in a lot of ways that pre-counters what you're countering Valkyries with. Now, all that being said, while I've been trying to discuss this, all the Valkyries did get picked off. But consistently making Valkyries here out of that starport. Very interesting play here from Fantasy. Now, one thing I do need to mention as well, you know, I'm sure there's at least a few super hardcore StarCraft 1 enjoyers watching this. This is not just a Fantasy thing. This is something Light has been toying with as well in the past year, right? Like, he's actually been toying with some of these +1 Valkyrie, nonstop Valkyrie production, you know, getting into mech, that type of thing. So it's not, this is definitely not just Fantasy, but Fantasy definitely bringing his own twists to a build like this. Definitely has executed it in a completely different way than the games that I've seen Light do builds that have a similar idea behind them. Now, a lot of Mutalisks have been fielded. So I think what we see here is he knows that it's a mech switch, and he's decided, you know what, we'll use these mutas. This is kind of sloppy, but yeah, I mean, he has the upgrades and the Marines do not, so I guess he can do this. Little bit cost inefficient there. But that's most of the anti-air. I think with the amount of Valkyries that Soma has killed off so far this game, he's looking at this and saying, you know what? The mutas can go kill some siege tanks, some vultures, things like that. There's not going to be many Valks. But honestly, there's like a few Goliaths being made, and he is still remaking Valkyries. There's 3 Valkyries in here. So obviously 3 Valkyries can just murder this army. He is trying to take out those Scourge first. Okay, does get rid of them without taking any hits. Very, very important. and now we'll be able to force those Mutalisks back. The Mutalisk just going to run away and go home. A lot of mines being laid out, siege tanks being spread. You know, another cool thing about what we're watching here with the Valkyries is, right, one of the big counters to Mech is Queens, right? You go Queens and you use Broodling on the siege tanks. But if you have enough Valkyries, I think you can basically zone out the Queens from really hitting those. In fact, we don't see Broodling even being started or Queen Energy being started. So I think Soma's decided, you know what, we have to go about this in a different way. There's too many Valks out there. One thing to mention is he is getting +2 flyer carapace, which will start to make the Mutas beat the Valkyries a little bit better. Not necessarily counter them, but buy enough time maybe for his Scourge to come in and flank. And of course, if you run out of Valkyries, the ground army is going to have a very hard time. There are some Goliaths that are being mixed in. In fact, more and more Goliaths are being produced right now. I think he realizes that this is kind of the idea that Soma's going with here. A little bit of vulture harassment going up, kills the drones over at that mineral base. Not the end of the world for Soma, but does want to think about getting more bases up here, more economy up here as well. Very fortified base here for Fantasy. Has his science facility finally, a very late science facility. Looks like he wants to go for +2 attack. You know, you definitely do want to continue those mech upgrades forward. They're some of the best upgrades in the game. +5 every time you upgrade the siege tank for siege mode. Now, a little group of Hydras coming over here trying to stop the 4th base for Fantasy. Comes up with his mech army. And, of course, we'll be able to punish this small group of Hydras. You know, someone's going to try to get out of here. Doesn't want to just throw these all away for free. They don't really have any chance fighting against such a mech army. And look at this. The Muta's flying in and brings the Scourge for a flank here. And actually gets a couple. He does some damage there. And, in fact, takes a lot of damage on his Mutas as well. But retains a lot of these Valkyries. Now, Queens are being added in. So Soma at this point has decided, you know what, Queens are going to be needed to take out the siege tanks. And then, you know what, they're going to get the +2 flyer carapace. Don't forget that they get those upgrades. So that will give them a little bit more stability to try to knock out those siege tanks before blowing up to the Valkyries. But if there's still continual production of those Valkyries, it is going to be hard to get on top of it. You know, he does have this 4th Valkyrie here to join the other 3 that survived. But now it looks like it's a switch into science vessels, which, of course, irradiates can be great as well. I've even seen a little bit of EMP used against clumped up Queens. I'm not sure that he knows about the Queens as of yet, though. That, you know, they just hatched. I haven't heard a scan. Haven't seen him scout this area as of yet since the map control still definitely goes to Soma here. A lot of mines around to trying to slow him down a bit. Ooh, very good mine hits. Muta's just clearing everything out for his Hydralisk army. Another base being taken. Getting that Nidus up immediately. A lot of drones being transferred down. You know, there's still a fair amount of vultures, so there could be a run by, right? If he happens to send all of his vultures down to a base like this, that is really going to hiccup the economy here of Soma. But Soma right now, like 62 drones against 52 SCVs is a pretty darn big deal. He has surpassed Fantasy in supply. Really kind of a wild game, because the thing is, you know, we talk a lot about how Zerg is so supply efficient that as soon as you see them up to about equal supply to their opponent, they're ahead, right? And that, I would still pretty much go with that here. But one thing to mention is that siege tanks can be so efficient, right? And as far as the air army goes, it's like, okay, well, you have all these Mutas, but like Irradiate plus Valkyrie does destroy these. Oh my god, they actually have +3 carapace. That's crazy. I actually didn't even notice that. But that makes the Valkyries much, much weaker against them. But yeah, you know, the supply differential here, it's more playable with Mech than it would be with Bio. If you're playing Bio and the supplies are looking like this, you're very close to death. Here with Mech, it's like, okay, well, if you can keep the siege tanks alive, they'll murder Zerg units forever. That's why Queens are so important. In fact, you can see he's getting the Queen energy upgrade right now. Queens are incredibly important because, like, you know, if let's say that you have 20 siege tanks in siege mode with like +2 or +3 attack, how many Hydras does it take to kill that? Well, the answer is almost infinity. Like, they just kill them so quickly. Like, it's crazy. Now, Soma is loading up for a big drop. He has a lot of queens here. And this is pretty deadly. There's, like, no defense in the main base. In fact, this could possibly be a game-ending move here. This is going to kill a lot of supply depots. In fact, Fantasy already a little bit supply blocked. Both of them supply blocked, in fact. The mutas fly in to take those turret hits, and out come all those Hydras. Now, here comes the army from Fantasy. He's bringing back his Radiates with those Science Vessels, setting up. Would love to see a Defense Matrix there. Doesn't quite get one off. He did have enough energy. A little bit unfortunate. That could have been great, just like defending a recall. And here come the Queens. Oh, my God. Some huge Broodlings come out here. And you know what? That was actually held a lot better than I thought it would. Be. Like, I guess it's not actually technically over yet, so we should see if he does get a bit more damage. Has a little group down here, but it feels like it's mostly held at this point. The Queens got a few siege tanks. A lot of them did end up dying. A lot more Queens on the way right now, but the rest of the units will be killed off. He did lose a few depots in here, so that's definitely something he's going to want to remake, maybe up in this area. You know, this is very droppable down here, so not sure if he wants to continue building in that zone. But right now, Soma coming over, he's clearing some of the mines. I think he feels like he's about to win this game, and I have to say, I think so too. Oops. Yeah, he's having a hard time casting that one. Does get the Broodling off, though. Fantasy still has a very healthy siege tank count, but he would need to go do something pretty quickly here, because it feels like he's no longer got the production he used to have. He's, you know, his supply has dropped dramatically in comparison to Soma's supply. So I guess at this point, it's like, okay, maybe if we take this map and split, and you deny Zerg here, you deny Zerg here, right? Zoom out, so you kind of split there, and that would also deny this space. So if Fantasy can maybe hold the center, something like that, he either has to basically go kill him right away, or do something like that, where he's securing himself 3-4 more bases and just grinding him down over time. But we'll see which way he goes. There are some more Broodlings trying to come out right now. More Queens have been hatched as well from Soma. Huge amount of siege tanks coming into the map. 2-2 upgrades as well. Very, very good upgrades. 3-3 is on the way here for Fantasy as well. And, you know, the ground army is not that good from Soma. He's got a great economy, as you can see. He's got a great amount of supply, but honestly, he's becoming extremely supply blocked. A lot of his overlords being caught out on the map. Also, some of the terrain here, like if you siege some tanks here, nothing can reinforce through there. And obviously, you have all these mines already. I would love to see just like 3 tanks siege in this general area to block this type of move. Okay, he does start siege as the Hydras come in, and he should be pretty darn cost efficient there. What else is going on? Okay, we have these overlords. They're actually empty. He's sending some Hydras up to block this command center. Hydra's going to the center to clear some of the mines as Fantasy moves down with his extremely strong mech army right now. But we have 4 Queens waiting over here. We have a bunch of Queens waiting here as well. So, right, that's 10 Queens that we have on the map ready to try to cast Broodlings onto Fantasy's army. Oh, even 3 more. Okay, so 13. So he might be able to take out 13 siege tanks. Okay, 1 gets taken out there. But if you're taking him out at that slow of a speed, like, he's going to start killing everything. This base already not really mining. Okay, here come those flanking Queens right now. Gonna get in on top of these. Oh my God, beautiful cloning there. And gets quite a few of them indeed. The army of Fantasy's shrinking in size. Don't forget, there's actually like a 20 worker differential. So this is actually like, for army purposes, think of it as 155 against, you know, 175. Which isn't as bad as what it looks like right now. And don't forget that a decent amount of the supply is Queens that have utilized their spell already. So, you know, that's one of the things. It's like, yeah, very cost efficient, but the supply can start to lie to you in a mech game against Zerg. Definitely one where you have to kind of think more of what's going on, what they both have available at the moment. And looks like some more Broodlings go out. Only 3 tanks left with this army. Very Vulture, very Goliath heavy. Groups of Hydras and, well, Queens up there, but they don't really have the energy for anything. But this group of Hydras, it looks like they were trying to stop reinforcements. But this is actually a beautiful move to come up and flank this army. But more Broodlings come out. And with more Hydras coming down, he's going to be able to kill off this army. Oh, Fantasy just so low on gas at this point. He's kind of mining out his gases. Having a hard time getting another base up as well. Kind of a crazy and very cool mech game. But yeah, it looks like that's not going to work out for Fantasy this game. Soma takes down Fantasy. GG.